congratulations for this seventh album. You know, it's really great, and it has been a few weeks since it's released. So, how do you felt when you release the album? You know, the album stopped being yourself of yourselves. You know, the album is for everybody. So, how do you feel the album has changed in these 2 weeks?
I mean, it's a big relief to be honest, because we have had it for a really long time, finished, mixed and mastered, and it's quite a nervous experience finally getting it out there. And the week that you release the album itself is stressful, like loads of shows for promotion and playing songs for the first time. So there's a lot of stress and like nerves around it. But then once it's out, it does feel very good to finally sit back and let people tell you that they like it, basically.
You know, one of the things I really noticed immediately when I heard the album is that, maybe in each album you change the instruments or you find some instrument or some synthesizer that you say, oh, maybe we can do something new. But in this case, I think the voice is really has changed a lot and has a lot of new texture. So how do you feel, when you heard the voice that was included in this album?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think you're right. We do look for different ways to change the sound, and keep evolving when we can. Um, but I think like the whole album to me feels quite mature, and I think that the voice, I think in Harry's case on this
Yeah.
album, it sounds a bit older, like in a way. It's slightly cracked now. It's not like like if you listen to the first album, every song sounds like very pure and very perfect in terms of like the vocals. Whereas this album, I think there's definitely a sense of emotion that is conveyed, I think, a little bit more through Harry's voice being sort of less shiny and new than it was 17 years ago. And there's a lot of quiet, I think, well, not lots, but there's a few moments on the album which are really quiet and the vocal is very exposed. And I think we haven't done that very much on previous albums. So I think in those moments you can hear a different side to Harry and then probably a different side to the band as well.
When I heard it, it gives me a lot of like Springsteen vibes, Bruce Springsteen
Oh yeah.
vibes.
That's a reference for sure. And in most albums that we make, we think about Springsteen once or twice. And there's a song that's right in the middle of the album called "Everything Is Okay," which was kind of it's like a ballad. And when we were thinking about the way that we wanted to do a ballad on this record, because we like always to have a slow song on our albums, the plan that we had was to try and make something that would feel a bit like a sort of Bruce Springsteen ballad, as opposed to like a really cheesy sort of crooner type thing. To have something a little bit more emotional, but still, I don't know what the right word is, like mature or classy or like slightly restrained in some way. Actually, not like a full on ballad.
And there's one song in particular that really caught my attention, and it's like everything is okay, because the song is like like a breakthrough. It's like I'm going to do things that I never done before. So how do you feel about this song and breaking things and do something new?
Well, that song, we feel very good about it, and like we always, in a different world, it might have been the song that we would release as a single, or like make a video for it or something like that. We still might do that. We still might make a video for that song ourselves, just because we love it and feel like it's the kind of song that could go a bit unnoticed on an album, because it's supposed to be a song in the middle of the record that allows you to sort of take a breath, and like it's not constant heavy music or constant fast music. It's like it's a bit of a pause, and there's not much in the way of drums, but everything still sort of builds to a crescendo, but it's just a bit more gentle. Yeah, I think that's a song that we couldn't write 10 years ago. That's a song that we've had to learn how to write a song like that and make it feel still like a White Lies song, and still um yeah, like emotional but without becoming cheesy.
How can you tell us, about all the contributors that are in this album? Because I read that you have some new contributors for this album in production and also in musicianships.
Yeah, we worked with a guy called Seth Evans. He's been performing with Black Midi for a long time, and he's basically a really talented pianist. And because when we were writing this album, we often when we write music, it will start on the piano, but then we'll move the sound away from the piano onto synths and stuff like that, or just guitars. But we really wanted to have like piano as like a focal point on the albums, with loads of big grand piano sounds on this album. And because we wanted to record the album kind of live, we wanted everyone to be in the room recording everything together. We needed to bring in someone who was sort of super talented at picking up piano parts really quickly and also coming up with some ideas when we were doing it. So we got introduced to Seth, and he was excellent for that because yeah, we did like a couple of weeks of rehearsal before we started recording the album, which we've never done before. We've never rehearsed before we've made an album, and it was a lot of fun actually getting in a room with someone new and hearing their ideas. And we told him just like anytime you have an idea, just suggest it, and if we don't like it, we'll just tell you. But he had lots of good ideas, and the way he kind of got the style that we were going for, which is kind of slightly 70s, a little bit glam, I think, on quite a lot of the tracks, the way the piano is played. Um, yeah, and it just opened up, a very classic instrument. To have piano on a rock album is not something particularly amazing, but for us, it was something we'd not done before, and getting the balance right was important, and he really helped with that. And then the producer was a guy called Riley McIntyre, who is a wonderful man. He's a Canadian guy. He works in London, and he works at the Church, which is Paul Epworth's studio in North London. And the studio itself is incredible. Like, I think it used to belong to the Eurythmics for a bit and David Gray for a little bit. So it's been through lots of sort of people's hands, but it's an amazing old studio, which is basically a church, a giant sort of old ancient church. And it was the perfect space for what we wanted to do, which was to be in the room together and make the album in the room together, not in different booths or anything like that. And Riley was the guy who was best placed to sort of help us do that. And he's a really creative sort of songwriter in his own right. And he was able to sort of make the most of the studio and make the most of the ideas that we had for the songs. And yeah, we really, I mean, to be honest with you, it's the most fun we've had making an album before. So I think if we have the opportunity to do it exactly the same way again, then I think we probably would, because it was just a really fun, creative, and just, I guess, sort of inspiring kind of way to make an album for us.
One of the things that you already told us is like you have a lot of instruments that it doesn't have used before. The last album is more like a synth based album.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe of your previous album, but this album it's like a whole new thing. It's like
Yeah,
something
I think
new.
we just had the idea that it was going to be the first time that we'd ever tried to record. Essentially, like, we're a good live band, and we've never really tried to capture that sort of live performance side of our band onto an album before. And that was the aim of it. We wanted to make an album that felt like it could have been made in the 70s. It could have been made, um, in the heyday of sort of someone like Bowie, and just everyone, you know, great musicians in the case of Bowie, like great musicians in the room putting together an album like at the same time, and you can hear all of the, I guess, all of the mistakes. We wanted to leave as many little mistakes as we could in, and all of the improvisations and things like that. And yeah, it's a fun way to work. It's very quick as well, to be honest with you. We rehearsed it for a few weeks, so we felt tight when we went into the studio, but then we can get through a few, tracking the basics of a few songs really quickly in a day, much quicker than we would ever make music in the studio before. And I think that's also a good thing, because one of the worst things that can happen as a band is when you're just locked in the studio for months and months and sort of chipping away at something without seeing the bigger picture. But the way that we did it, I think we were able to always take a step back and listen to the whole song. And yeah, it was a fun way of doing it. And I would definitely hope that we do it like that again.
Is there a song in the album that you have a special, different vibe that you haven't done before?
The song Nightlight is one of the most interesting White Lies songs for me, because it starts very quiet. It's probably one of the quietest songs that we've ever played. And it took us a long time to work that song out, actually, because the first half of it is completely different. The first half is like it's a bit jazzy. It's a bit like a sort of talk, like later talk album or something was our aim with that track. And then the second half of it is way more euphoric and much more like sort of almost a bit disco-y. And we found it very difficult to sort of join those two parts together. We couldn't work out how to get from the first bit to the second bit. So we recorded them separately, like, and all the variations on those ideas. But it took us a long time to come up with a way that we felt was like sympathetic to the song. And when we got it right, like that felt like a really great moment for us because that was a that was a it wasn't an easy journey. And I love when you get to the end of a song in terms of like producing it or mixing it and just think, yeah, we got that right. And it took a long time to do it, but we did finally figure it out. And things where you have to work harder always feel more rewarding, I think.
Yeah, I think that song in particular is going to sound great live because as you said, it starts like this, and then in the end, it's
Yeah.
like a bomb.
It's one of the few we have learnt it at the rehearsal room, but we didn't play it on the. We had a few shows the week the album came out around the UK, and we decided not to play that one because we wanted to wait until it was like perfect, because it's because of the way like it needs production as well. I feel like it needs like some beautiful lighting for the first half of it. Like it needs to be moody and whatever. And yeah, when we come to tour in Europe and the UK, and then actually when we come to Mexico in March as well for the headline shows, I really hope that we will be playing that song. Yeah.
Well, Jack, thanks a lot for this interview, and we hope to. Well, you're going to be here in Mexico in March, and I think that by that time, the album is going to sound greater than it sounds nowadays.
I am very excited to come to Mexico in March. Like honestly, it's the favorite part of every album campaign is when we get to come to Mexico. So we'll be there in March doing the headline shows in Guadalajara, Monterrey, Viva Latino in Mexico, and then I'm very hopeful that we'll go back to Mexico City to do a headline show there as well, and yeah, hopefully perform a lot of the new record and obviously a few favorites as well. But it's going to be it's going to be pretty dialed in by that point. We'll have played a lot of shows on the album, and by the time we get to March, I think it should be sounding shit hot.
Yeah, because I was in the last time you came here in the Pepsi Center, and it was like I never seen like a solo show of yours, and it was
Yeah.
fantastic. It's like all the fans were delivering everything for yourself.
Yeah, big moment for us that show because it was like our biggest show in 12 years or something, or even longer than that, maybe like 15 years. Um, yeah, probably our biggest ever show, to be honest, our biggest ever headline show in terms of the tickets that we sold. And we sell more tickets in Mexico than we do anywhere else in the world, and that's always a very cool thing to know when you're sitting in the rain in the cold in London, and you can think about, well, at least I get to go to Mexico City soon.
Yeah, I was also in the first time that you came to Mexico in 2010 at Corona Capital Festival.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was like it's like to see like a friend growing up and through the years, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. I
funny.
think that I remember that show actually. I think we had some technical problems in that show. Like it was one of the times that we went to the first time we came to Mexico and we were a bit like shell shocked by the
Mhm.
experience, and then we had some technical problems. But then when we came back a few years later, we were like, oh, actually, it's fine. Mexico still loves wildlife, so it's good.
Well, Jack, thank you so much for this interview, and your album is really great. You're going to see that everyone is going to love it, and it's a shame that because when you are releasing a new album, some songs has to get out of the set list, but especially this album, no one is going to complain that they are not hearing previous songs.
I hope so. It's always a challenge figuring out what songs stay and what songs go. But yeah, I think we'll play quite a lot of the new album. It feels like it's going to be fun to do live. So